coming to our question, the specific question type that we are going to focus on today, and that is, as I said earlier, multiple graphs. So basically, it could be a combination of any of these. A bar graph, line graph, a pie chart, or a table. A combination, normally it could be any two of these. Okay, all these are data related. These are diagrams which depict information, which depict data, but in a pictorial. Okay, so these three would be pictorial. A table would still be numbers or figures. Okay, so this is what a multiple graph is all about. Just to give you an example of what multiple graphs could look like, okay, a question like would look like. So here you have a combination of this, what is this? This is a pie chart and this is a line graph. Okay, so this graph, the pie chart tells you about the types of books borrowed, and the line graph tells you about the number of books that were borrowed in 4 village libraries. Okay, you're given the names of the villages here, and it is over a period of 4 months. So the number of books borrowed, and this is a data for the same villages put together, but it is the type of books that were borrowed. Okay, now tell me one thing, guys. Do you think the data in these two graphs can be compared? Is it comparable? Can you make any comparisons over here? Anyone? Do you think the data can be compared? Go ahead, guys. It's okay if your answers are incorrect. All
There
of
is
you.
no baseline to compare, like.
Absolutely. Okay, so remember, in multiple graphs, it is not always necessary that you will be able to make comparisons. Okay, now in this case, you cannot compare the data because the pie chart is talking about the type of books borrowed. There is no period also mentioned. Okay, it's just telling you what are the type of books borrowed, the percentage under each category. Whereas the line graph is telling you about the number of books borrowed. So there is no way that you can compare this data. Okay. So where comparisons can be made, you should make comparisons. But where comparisons cannot be made, don't try to bring up anything. Okay. Because that would, it would just not work. So you have to understand whether the data is comparable or not as well. Okay, because where data is comparable, you will need to make comparisons. They will expect that you make comparisons. Okay, this is another example. You have a pie chart here again, and you have a bar graph. Okay, now the pie chart, the percentage of women in poverty. So this talks about the percentage of women in poverty. Okay, this pie chart, it talks about the percentage of women in poverty. It is talking about single and married women with or without dependent children. Okay, and it is giving you the percentages. Whereas this bar graph is giving you data about poverty rates by sex and age. So under each age category, the percentage of people under poverty, and for males and females. Again, in this also, you really cannot make comparisons between the two. Okay, as uh, there is no common criteria based on which you can compare anything. So again, this is a graph where you cannot make comparisons. Okay, how you structure the graph, as in terms of the entire structure, the paragraphs, I'll be covering as we go ahead. Okay, this is a combination of a pie chart and a table. Okay, so the table is, it gives you actual numbers. Okay, there is no pictorial representation as such. Okay, so this tells you about the causes of worldwide land degradation, and this talks about the causes of land degradation by region. Okay, so these were just examples of graphs, combination graphs or multiple graphs as we call them. Yeah, Sayam.
So in this specifically, I think we can make
You can
connections.
make
Yeah.
comparisons. Okay. So this is a graph where comparisons can be made between the two, between the pie chart and the table. Okay. So we are going to look at a specific question type. But yes, out of the three multiple graph questions that we saw, this is one where comparisons can be made. Okay. Now, in such a question where comparisons can be made, you have to ensure that you do the comparisons. Okay. This is the question that we are going to be covering in today's session. Okay, it is a multiple graph. As you can see, one of them is a table and the other one is a, what is this, the second one? What type of a chart is it?
This is also a
bar.
bar
It's
graph,
bar chart.
but it
Yeah,
is
actually,
just the axis is oriented differently.
Yeah, so this is a bar graph. Only thing is the bars are horizontal, whereas normally when you see a bar graph, the bars are vertical. Okay, so don't get confused, guys. It is a normal bar graph. Okay, there are times I have had students who have got confused when they see horizontal bars. Okay, so it's just a horizontal bar. In fact, it's very simple to understand. Okay, of course, I'll explain it to you all, but I just wanted to bring out that in a bar graph, you can have horizontal bars, you can have vertical bars as well. Okay, so now the question, I'll just read out the question. The question says, the table and chart below show the time spent on leisure and household activities in Britain. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. Okay, so here the question is asking you to make comparisons. Now, can comparisons be made in this chart? I mean, in this question. So if you see, I'll just explain it to you first. So the first graph, it's a table. It is talking about leisure activities, average minutes per day. So it is a time that men and women spend on leisure activities. And they've given a breakup of the activities. The first one is on TV, video, and radio. The second activity is reading, and the third activity is sports. Okay. Now they've given the time spent by men and women individually. Okay. This is the first graph, which is a table. Now the second graph says that this talks about household activities. So it is the time that men and women spend on household activities. It is given in the form of minutes per day again. Okay, so the unit of measurement in both is the average minute per day. Okay, now you can see, Sayam, just a minute. Okay, you can see that the blue color, it represents women, and the red color, it represents the men. And you've got a number of activities here. You've got cooking and washing, there is shopping, there's repair, and then there is clothes washing and ironing. Now here you have time which is mentioned over here. You have 20 minutes, 40 minutes, 60 minutes, and 80 minutes. Okay. Yeah, Sayam, you had something to say.
Yes, ma'am. So I wanted to talk about the second graph, household activities.
Hmm.
As there is no, like in the first graph, it is like a proper, we know the exact unit of minutes, right?
Hmm.
But as in the second graph, the exact units are guess, like you have to guess the exact units. So during this situation, should we write, like, for example, cooking and washing? Women spend somewhere between 60 to 80 minutes, or should we make a rough estimate and say women spend more than 70, between 70 to 80 minutes, or should we give a hypothetical figure
Not a
uh,
it's not definitely a hypothetical
like
figure.
a guess figure, yeah, like a guess figure, like I could say this could be a 70 or 75.
So 70 will be exactly half of this, right?
Yeah,
Between 60 and 80. So this is almost around 75.
yeah.
Yeah. So you could say you will take the figure 75, but instead of saying 75, it is 75 minutes, you would say it is approximately 75 minutes. So you
Okay,
will
okay.
use language to that effect. Okay. Around 75 minutes, approximately close to 75 minutes. That's the language that you would use when you're not sure about the numbers. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And can't we use to 70 to 80 minutes instead of giving the exact number when
It
it is not known?
preferable to use a figure like 75 minutes.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You can make a rough estimate. So it is around 75. So why not say 75 instead of saying between 60 and 80? Yeah. Okay. Now my question is this data comparable or not?
Yes, ma'am.
Like not
I'm
completely
sorry, can I know your
comparable.
name, please?
Ma'am, Nitin.
Nitin, yeah. So Nitin, yes, Nitin says that the data is comparable. Sayam, you were saying something.
Yeah, I feel the opposite.
Okay. Nitin, how can the data be compared?
Like in a day, it's talking about time spent by men and women.
Okay.
That could be the baseline in a day. Men spend more time in leisure activity than women. On the
Okay.
other hand, women spend more time in like household work than men.
Absolutely. So you can see that there is a stark difference. In fact, it is just the opposite. Okay, you see that men are spending more time on leisure activities, and it's very clearly evident that women are spending more time on household activities. So from that perspective, yes, it is comparable. Yeah, Sayam?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so from that perspective it is comparable. Okay, so this is how you have to, so when you are doing your writing tasks, the first thing that you should do is something like this activity that we did just now. Okay, now I explained it to you. When you are doing your actual practice or you are actually writing your exam, you will be doing this activity on your own. Okay, so the first thing that you need to do is spend some time on studying the diagram. Okay, study it, understand it, and just pick up the main points that you see, like for example the point that Nitin just mentioned. Okay, pick up those main points and know what you are going to write in your report. Come up with a sort of a blueprint or a structure, and then go on to actually starting to write. And after you have finished writing, you have to ensure that you keep some time to check what you have written. Okay, because when we are writing, we do tend to make mistakes, whether it is a paper based test or whether it is a computer based test. In fact, when we are doing a computer based test, we do tend to make typing because we are not, many of us are not used to typing. So when we type, we make mistakes, so we have to ensure that we correct those mistakes, because that can cost us band scores. Okay, so this is how you should utilize your time. Take around 3 to 4 minutes to study your question, understand it, plan what you're going to write. Take around 12 minutes to actually write your report, and then maybe 2 to 3 minutes to check and make corrections, check and edit. Okay, now, we are going to go through this paragraph by paragraph so that you know how you can actually structure your report, particularly when it comes to writing a multiple graph report.
Or it's given as, suppose we take the bar graph, it's given as cooking and washing for women and men. It's given separate numbers. So do we illustrate the numbers in detail, like cooking and washing? Women spend around 75 minutes of time. Men spend around 30 minutes of time. And for shopping, again, women spend so much and men spend so much. Do we do the detailed illustration in the first paragraph?
Not in the first paragraph. Not at
Okay.
all in the first paragraph. Okay. So this is all you need to write in the first paragraph. Now, some points that you need to bear in mind when we are doing multiple graphs. Okay. Before we actually look at the report, if the data in the two graphs is comparable, it is important that you draw comparisons and compare and draw conclusions about the relation between the two graphs. So making comparisons is important if it is comparable. Okay. In your overview, you can write one outstanding feature about each graph. You can include a third point if you want about a comparison between the two graphs. Okay, so you can have if one point about each graph, and you can have a third point where you are comparing the two. Okay, so this is what you can write in your overview. Third paragraph can give detailed features of graph 1. The fourth paragraph can give detailed features about the second graph. And as I mentioned earlier, if they are comparable, include points of comparison also. So these are some broad pointers with regards to multiple graphs. Okay. Any questions about this? Now, if there are two graphs, there is a possibility that there is a lot of information that you see. Okay, you will not be able to include everything in your report, because if you try to do that, you might end up writing a lot, and you might end up messing up your time management. You have to ensure that you write your report within 20 minutes. So remember that every single point that you see in the diagram cannot be included in the report. So you have to pick up the most significant features and explain those in your report. Okay, the examiner is looking to see that you can select the important thing and not describe every single detail. Okay, so you should be able to pick up important points and include those in the report, and that too in a concise manner. Okay, brevity is important. Don't be very as in explain it in detail using a lot of language. The If you're able to keep your language crisp, it'll be better. Okay, so these are some points that you need to bear in mind when you are doing your multiple graphs. Okay, now we are going to look at each paragraph separately. I've written everything over here. We are just going to understand it based on the structure. Okay, so if you remember, first paragraph I had mentioned that you should paraphrase the question. This is how you can begin your first paragraph. Okay, start with this language. Don't make any experiments over here. Just start with this type of language. The chart illustrates or demonstrates or shows or depicts. This is a typical phrase which you can use to start the first paragraph. Of course, you will paraphrase the language which was used in the question. As I had mentioned, you can include values for data related diagrams, and you can also include the source of information. Okay, now in this diagram there is no source mentioned, and I have not included the values as well in my first paragraph. Okay, as I said, you can include it, it's not mandatory. Now it all depends on your word count. Okay, if you think that there is not much information to write about in your diagram, then you might ensure that you include a sentence which talks about the unit of measurement. Okay, all the data is given in average minutes per day, something like that. Okay, but in my case, in this report, I have not included it, because even without that, I think I have a word count of around 190. Okay, so that's the reason why I have not included the unit of measurement. Okay, so now what is the question saying? The question says the table and chart below, don't use words like below, above, following. Okay, if at all you want to use a word, you can say the given graph or the given chart. Okay, avoid below, above, following. Okay, now the table and chart below show the time spent on leisure and household activities in Britain. Summarize the information. So this is what you need to paraphrase. Okay, now how has this been written? The table and the bar charts compare. Okay, so I've used the word compare the average time. Now this says the time spent on, I have included the word average. Okay, so the average time British men and women. Now here they have said activities in Britain. They have not mentioned men and women. Since the graph shows men and women, I have included the word British men and women. So in Britain, instead of saying in Britain, I have said British. Okay, British men and women spend on recreational activities. Your question says leisure. I have used a synonym for leisure activities as recreational activities. And instead of saying household activities, I have said domestic chores, and I have used the word respectively. Okay, respectively indicates the sequence. Okay, so recreational and domestic. The table shows the recreational activities, and the bar chart shows domestic activities. And hence, I have used the word respective. Okay, so this is how you can paraphrase the question. Any questions about the first paragraph? Okay, let's move on to the second paragraph, which is the overview. I'm repeating again that the overview is important, so don't miss out on the overview. Okay, the second paragraph has to be an overview. Kindly do not club the overview with the first paragraph. Okay, you might find reports online, model answers which show the overview clubbed with the first paragraph. Just write it as a second paragraph. Okay, now as I said earlier, you describe the most general trends and you include the most striking features. Okay, I've kept it very simple. The answer that I have given is, overall it is seen that women spend more time on household work than men, while it is just the opposite for leisure. Okay, so I have just picked up the point of comparison and I have written it in my overview. Okay, technically it is 1 point about each of the graphs, but I have combined it and I have also made it a comparison point. Okay, you could add 1 or 2 more points in the overview. Okay, any thoughts on what else can be written as an overview point? Supposing you want to write one specific point about the table and one specific point about the bar graph, what can you write? Yes, Sayam.
We can, one specific point we can write is, I think, about cooking and washing, because that's one of the highest difference between the graph.
Okay, so you can probably say that you can say that the most time that is spent by cooking and washing is the activity on which women spend the most time. That is one point that you can say in terms of household activities. Okay, what else? Any other ideas?
And we can also like expand this overview a little bit by saying, while on the other hand, men spend the maximum amount of time on TV, video, and radio, like
So that is,
on their leisure activities.
so that is the point which you are taking from the table. So 1 point for the table and 1 point for the graph. Okay, bar graph. Okay, there is 1 point which stands out starkly in the bar graph. Can anyone tell me what that it is? What that is? Something which is which should catch your eye actually.
Repairs, I think.
It's average minutes per day.
No, that is not what stands out. Yeah, Sayam,
Repairs. We
yes.
can talk about repairs.
Yeah, so this is one activity where men spend more time than women. A household chore where men spend more time. All the other activities, it is the women that spend more time than men. Okay, so this is a point which you can write in your overview. Okay, fine. So let's move on. Yeah, there is some alternate language that you can use to start the overview paragraph. You can say it is clear, it is evident, it is apparent from the diagram that women spend more time on household work than men, while it is just the opposite for leisure. So you can as well use this language to start your overview paragraph. Okay. Yeah. Now going on to paragraphs 3 and 4. So para 3 and 4 is where you will give the details, okay, and you will support these points with numbers, okay. Be sure that you mention numbers. Many of us tend to omit supporting the points with numbers, and numbers are important. It is a graph. It is about numbers. So your para 3 and 4 should include numbers. Okay. Now, as I said earlier, you can have one, one paragraph about the table and the other. So it's, I think, just the opposite here. Here, the first paragraph is about, what do you call? Yes, it is about the bar graph, and the second or the fourth paragraph is about the table. Okay. Now I'm going to read, and I'll also explain it to you all while I am reading. Okay. Women spend maximum time. Okay. This is very evident. You can see that this stands out. Okay. Women spend maximum time. So this is the language that I have used. Sayam, approximately 75 minutes. Okay, approximately. So women spend maximum time in brackets. You can use brackets. Approximately 75 minutes cooking and washing, which is more than double the time spent by men, around half an hour on it. So double of half an hour is 60 minutes. So women spend more than double the time spent by men on washing and cooking. Okay, so this is the first point that I have written about in when I'm talking about the bar graph. This is the most significant point actually. Then likewise, this is a linking word. Okay, I'm using the word likewise because the trend is the same. Okay, laundry work. Likewise, laundry work consumes 30 minutes of a woman's daily time. So you have laundry work over here. Okay, clothes washing and ironing. So instead of saying clothes washing and ironing, I have used the word laundry work. Okay, so laundry work consumes, this looks like almost half. Okay, so I have used the number 30. So laundry work consumes 30 minutes of a woman's daily time, which is roughly thrice the time spent by men on it. So if you can see, men spend around 10 minutes. So I've used the word roughly, okay, which is roughly thrice the time spent by men on it, and I've put 10 into brackets. Clear? Now, next linking word that I use is comparatively. Comparatively, there is not much difference between the time utilized by men and women for shopping. So you have shopping over here, which is 25 and 35 minutes respectively. Okay, so here for women it is for shopping it is, men is around 25 minutes, and for women it is around 35 minutes. Okay, and I've used the word respectively to show the order. Interestingly, okay, you can use another linking word instead of interestingly. What linking word can you use over here? Guys, give me a second, okay? Yeah. What is the linking word you can use instead of interestingly? See, I'm talking about repair work. Okay. And repair work, the trend is just the opposite. So what linking word can you use over here? Yeah, Sayam.
We can use, two things are coming to my mind. One is surprisingly,
Okay.
and we can also say on the contrary.
You can use words like on the contrary or conversely, on the other hand. Okay, these are linking words which you use when you are talking about contrasting pieces of information. Okay, so or you can say conversely. So conversely, repair work is the only chore to which men devote more time, almost 19 minutes as compared to 9 minutes by women. Okay,